How you doing, everybody? Well, this is gonna be kind of a depressing video, I guess. I've always tried to speak, about things that I can actually make a difference with, things that I can see a positive outcome from. And I've found myself over the last couple of years creeping into this state of almost being passive with all the shit that's going on in the world. I should say appearing passive, and I've noticed a lot of my videos and a lot of my discussions and comments and, conversations I have in life, I tend to be kind of the defender of, oh well, it is what it is. But I just want to kind of vocalize my displeasure with the current fiat money system and the implications of what that means for us in our future. It's for those who haven't looked into the economy, who don't really understand how the economy works, you don't really need to be, you don't have to have a degree in economics to understand what fiat money is. It's money that's produced out of thin air that has absolutely no gold backing it. And so, anybody who's done research into this, it's hard for me to know where to start, because some people will watch this video and they'll be like, well, what's fiat money? Explain more about how this part of it works. Other people will say, that's old news, because I've known about these things for 20 years. I have a book up there, it's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's an 800-page book that I got. My mom gave it to me actually when she took this class about how we, shouldn't have to pay income tax. The Founding Fathers didn't intend us to pay income tax on our wages. It was intended to be a tax on profits. And America, remaining in a state of perpetual war, has been able to, make amendments to this constitutional right of ours to make our money and have it. Nobody in the early free world would ever agree to say, yes, sure, take 30% of the money that I make. Oh, here, take it. No, we had economics that were based on profits and incomes, but there were times of war when we were able to be taxed. All the details of that can be, researched, and it's not even worth me discussing here because there's a million documentaries that will point to that, but and a million books. But, the reason why I'm talking about this now is because 2015, I can't believe we've made it this far without a collapse yet. And this is because of what they did back in 2008. In 2008 I said, well, this is it, If we do make it out of this crisis, then it's only going to be because of, I believe they call it quantitative easing. I think that's the right term. And basically what happens is when the government, this whole too big to fail, you hear this shit about the banks. The banks basically say, well, if you don't bail us out, then you're all screwed. And the whole country's going down, so you better give us money. So they give them money, and that's what we did. And then they turn around and say, well, we're going to keep this money and use it for our own needs and not lend any to people who really need it. As soon as the Fed gives money to the banks are able to use that money to invest and make profits that are way above and beyond, because the dollar hasn't been determined yet, the dollar value. That money hasn't been declared yet. So basically the banks are making all your money. And, we know this, so what do I do? What do you do about it? We're stuck being the little guy that gets shit on, And at the same time, people will say, oh, but we have the opportunity here in this free world to, build ourselves up. And, we could be millionaires if we want to. At one time in history, that may have been true, but there's no longer space for the little guy in the rich man's world. But beyond just the richness of it, this isn't about the few or the 1%. This is about a system that is in utter decay and collapse, which was already doomed to collapse, but in 1965, when we went off the gold standard and started printing shit coins that are made out of nothing, pennies are made out of zinc now. Most people don't even realize that pennies aren't even copper. And up until 1980 they were, or 1982 I believe. So your old pennies, pre-1982, actually worth 2 cents or more. That's a fact. There are people that will buy up pre-1980 coins because they know this, and it seems like chump change, pennies, right? But in the long run, it's a lot. And it's the same way with silver investment and gold investment. When these people know the price of gold is going to go up or the price of silver is going to jump, they invest. I believe 2012, they said, was the largest year for gold buying by the Central World Bank since in 50 years. Which actually, come to think of it, in 1980, I believe it was the Lehman Brothers that had something to do with this, the silver crisis. The silver shot up from like $5 an ounce to something like $50 an ounce for 1 year. So that 80, that was 45 years ago. So, or no, wait, sorry, 35 years ago, and let's see. So it wasn't quite 50. So I guess it wouldn't have been that issue. But anyway, whenever these people know that something's going to go down, they start buying up precious metals and stuff, because the actual value, the intrinsic value, metal itself is really worthless, gold and silver. The reason why gold and silver were used for so long is because it is gold is the only substance that that is so malleable, that is so usable for so many things, but it's so easy to transport and is so rare, and is generally mined at the same rate as the human population increases. It has been consistent throughout history. And so once we went off the gold standard, money became worthless. So it's been 45 years now since 1965. So that might have something to do with 50 years ago. They probably knew that we were going off the gold standard and bought up all the gold. But today we're still off the gold standard, and we will remain that way. And the only way that we were able to make it through the 2008 crisis was by them pumping in this fiat money into the economy. At the highest point, they were pumping in $85 billion a month, I believe. They're claiming that they're going to try to get it down to $10 billion a month now. This is our economy. This is our home. This is our world. And we tend to put the economy in others' hands as if it's something separate from us that we use, but it's not. It's the method of trade and the system of trade for an entire world now. No longer can we have one large economy that just collapses and everything's fine for the rest of the world. We have a very delicate web woven here. And the system will collapse. And I'm just wondering when. So, after reading a couple little articles, people are of course predicting that 2015 will be the year. Some people are saying May 2015. I don't think it really matters when it is. It's just like any other, I guess you could say, oh, it's just another prophecy of doomsday, but it's not. This is one that's really coming. There's no way for us to bail ourselves out of this one. The only thing that's going to make a difference is if people slowly start waking up, becoming aware of where their money is going, and become aware of not only being wronged, but if they work in a career or in a governmental position where they're wronging other people, until people start to care about one another. But even then, you still have people who just, they care about others, but they're out for themselves first. And that's the result of an economy that rewards those who tread on others. This is the system we've built. I see good things in the world. I see a lot of, hope, and there's a lot of potential for the future of mankind as a species, but not for our current economy and system. And the problem is that economy and system is what supports the roads, transportation, gasoline, oil, maintaining the nuclear power plants, maintaining the hydroelectric dams, all of these things. and we're running out of money quickly. The American infrastructure is crumbling, and it's a direct result of exactly what I'm talking about here, the collapse of the US dollar. And so people can say, well, we're strong and we'll survive and we'll make it through. The question becomes, how many of us will be left? Because you can look at a city like Detroit today, and you will see that gradually repeated throughout the entire nation over a period of decades. You can look at the droughts in California and the problems that they're having with their crops. They've had to uproot entire almond orchards, orange orchards, all types of crops that they cannot get the water for anymore because there's just not enough. We've pumped our aquifers dry. We've stripped our oil wells dry. And we're living like a bunch of college kids at a party, you know, just like getting the most out of it, you know, just party it up while you're here, you know. Meanwhile, there are unborn children, not even conceived, generations down the line, who will be looking back on you and me and saying, why? You know, what did you attain? What were you trying to get? And, you know, alas, the economy has imploded, and people will look back on history and say, well, it happened with the Roman Empire. It's happened with every empire. It happened with the Ottoman Empire. It happened with Egypt. All of the empires eventually crumble because of corruption of their leaders, and every single one of them have one thing in common. They all went off the precious metal standard and began making clad coins or plated coins. And for us to look at that today and not realize what's going on is pathetic. On the other hand, those of us who do realize what's going on, what do we do about it? And this is why I haven't spoken about these things, because it's not that it doesn't frustrate me, it's just that I'm at a loss for any type of recourse other than just to tell other people about it. But honestly, all it does is makes people depressed. You know, when you realize you live in a slave economy, you know, it is kind of depressing. But knowledge is power, and in the end, you use that knowledge to, you're stronger for it. I always want to know the truth. I just don't want to know the future, because it'll happen when it happens. So, my personal prophecy, I guess, is, you know, this is something I said years back, but I think it was probably 10 years ago when I said I give the economy 15 years. You know, so I'd say 5 more years if we're lucky. Actually, I think 10 years ago I said 10 years or something, or wait. Yeah, I can't remember, but it would have coincided with 2008. So if they hadn't actually pumped that money into the economy, it probably would have collapsed. And we're still going along like everything's normal. You know. Have you been to the grocery store lately? It's like $50 just to go in and buy some milk and bread, some juice, a few snacks. It's wild. And the gas prices are low, which is keeping people happy, keeping people driving, keeping people spending, and eventually that will fade too. Anyway, we'll hope for the best, expect the worst, like usual. And the one thing I'd like to leave everybody with is be a prepper to an extent. Be prepared. Don't need to laugh at people who stockpile food, because you might be that guy who wished he had. I have a 3-month supply of food. I'm not worried about it for my entire family, and if need be, I know how to fend for myself, and I will get more. I won't expect the government to bail me out, because if the shit hits the fan, I'll know, and I'll be ready to expect it. I can go from being this, you know, easygoing, peace-loving guy to doing whatever I need to do. I don't need to vocalize the details of it, because I'm careful about what I say, but put it this way, I can defend myself, and I'll have no problem doing so. I have a fire in me, a fire that can't be quenched. And that fire is, I keep it burning because it keeps me on my toes. I don't try to extinguish it or get to a state where I've abandoned that emotion. I use it, I lasso it, I harness it, and I utilize it when I need it. I bid you all adieu, and I hope you're all prepared for the inevitable collapse of the US dollar. Might come this year, might come 10 years from now, but when it does, I wouldn't say it's going to happen overnight. It definitely won't. But something else might happen overnight that triggers that, a catalyst, let's say. Because all it would take is for us to fall behind like a week, like one solar flare, take down the grid for a while, everything would be backed up and everything would collapse. It's a very, very intricate system we have. And the fact that it even works at all right now is amazing to me, but it's not perpetual and it's not self-sustaining. We've moved beyond self-sustaining, and we all know that.